Bob here. Um, so I'm hoping to do 2 videos today, and the timer's actually working, so I'm doing it right this time. Um, and the first one is kind of a redo. I started doing one the other night. I've just started a new job, and my brain was mashed potatoes, so about halfway through it, I started becoming incoherent and taking long pauses that didn't really make any sense whatsoever. And I figured 8 minutes of talking in a 25-minute video isn't really worth it, right? Especially when all the rest of it is just me staring off and looking like an idiot. If you want to see that, all you got to do is pause. Anyway, that video was about control. It was sort of a secondary thing. It's not necessarily associated directly with writing, but with your life. And it's the whole chestnut, God give me the courage to change what I can. And I just completely lost it. The courage to change what I can, the wisdom to accept what I can't, and the knowledge to know the difference. Something like that. I'm sure you've heard some version of it, and if you haven't, look it up. It's easy enough to find. A lot of people have control issues. And nowadays, it's kind of a weird one, right? Because a lot of the time, we have so much control over what we can do that we can't control everything. And at the same time, we have so little control over what we can do, that it almost feels like we can't do a thing at all. Perfect example, online you're given, 5,000 options for anything, Anytime you make an account, you get to choose a new name. Some of us stick to the same 2, 3, 5 account names. Others will make a new account every week just to change the name. And to dodge the banhammer. You know how it is. I'm looking yeah. So, we have all of that control. We can build our feeds, we can create whatever we want as far as, a digital space for ourselves. But at the same time, the algorithms, while we are technically choosing them, how that's going to be shaped, once we've dropped those, balls into the bowl, it starts spinning and pumping them out to us, and we have no control over how those balls come back out. That's a bingo reference. Yeah. Fuck. I don't know. I don't know why that popped into my head. At the same time, the ability to choose and change things and manipulate things and, get all sorts of extra options have made a lot of people selfish about the kind of control they want. Even outside of the digital realm, they want to know who gets their information, who gets whatever, which makes perfect sense. You should have a right to protect your, your personal information, the stuff that you make yourself, all of that. But at the same time, there are some things and some people that should have access to it, whether you would allow it or not. Medical experts should be able to have access to some of your personal information immediately. And some of the choices that we're making or trying to gain access to would actually be hindrances to, getting the medical help we would need in an emergency faster. What's your blood type? You don't have any say over that. But I mean, at this point, there are probably a lot of people that would say that they should have the right to have whatever blood type they think they want for whatever reason, considering we try and argue that gender and all of these other things are just social constructs that can be hand-waved away. Well, guess what? When the doctor's trying to give you meds, there's two of them. You've got the male and the female. If you're intersex, you're going to be a special case. You're super rare, and they're going to be experimenting on you. There's no other way of putting it. That's not them, being cruel or anything. It's that you are such a one-off, genetically, biologically, that they can't be certain how their medicine is going to work. That's, that's a gross simplification. A lot of medicine works on people regardless of sex. But some can have, serious differences based on whether you're a male or a female. And you can social construct that away all you want. At the end of the day, the medicine is going to affect you based on your body. And obfuscating it because you should have control over what you're called is just risking your own life to make some point that doesn't really even matter. Anyway, the point was, control is important. You should want to have control over parts of your life. The parts of your life that you should want control over are the ones that you can change yourself. And that pretty much stops at your own borders, right? You shouldn't be forcing other people to do what you say just because you say it. That's not something that you have the right to. You don't have control over that. You should not have control over that any more than you would want them to have that control over you. When there's overlap, you've got to go your separate ways for all intents and purposes. Control. Yeah, you should try and know which things you can control, which things you can change, and do what you can to change them. If you have a limited ability to change something, that limited ability, is still something that you can do. An example from my own writing. Well, first of all, if you are writing, the control aspect within your own world, you have effectively complete control. That's not entirely true, obviously, because you have to follow certain conventions in order to be read. That's not to say that, you have to follow a specific format. You don't have to write your first story as a Bildungsroman hero's journey with, wizard children in school to get big or anything like that. Though it has worked for a few people, it's not a completely bad idea. You have control over your world, but once your work is out there in the real world, in the digital world, however you want to, term that, once your book is printed, once your ebook is released on, whatever platform you're using, you lose control of that to a greater or lesser degree. And that's also true as far as certain things to do with stuff like formatting. If you are going trad publishing, you might be in a better boat, because a trad publishing house will work to find a format that works that works for your writing. But that's not necessarily 100% true either. If you are trying to get gold printed or gold foil paper for a first book, expect disappointment. On the other hand, if you just want a basic font that will be easy to read, trad publishing is going to be good to you. My problem, what happened to me that kind of dovetails into this control aspect, and this runs into the perfectionism thing that I've talked about in the past, is in Life is Eternal, the first book that I put out on Kindle Vella, the computer system is in Dozenal, base 12, Unseal. For those who don't understand what that means, most of the time, everything that you see is done in decimal, base 10. Numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. In Dozenal, instead of having 10 digits, there are 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, a 10 character, an 11 character, and a 0. I wrote mine out with 2 common Unicode characters, turn digit 2 and turn digit 3, which look like an upside down 2 and 3, and are specifically there for Dozenal writing. And I, put it up on the computer, I put it onto Vella, checked it over, looked at it, everything I could do physically to inspect and see that it was done right. And it looked fine. A couple of weeks later, when that page came out, I have a friend that is reading it, and he takes a look and goes, "Hey, you've got some dead characters in your book, in the Vella. What's going on with that? Is that deliberate, or is it a mistake? What the hell are you talking about?" So I go and I look. Looks fine on my computer. Turns out, the fonts that Kindle app and Kindle devices have, or the default on Kindle devices, and the entirety of what's in the Kindle app, lack those two characters from that Unicode block. Which is funny because more than half of that Unicode block is accepted as, part of what they put into that font, but those two characters are not. And most of the rest of it that isn't covered, most of the rest of the block that isn't covered are blanks. They're nulls that don't actually have a character in them yet. So I found the default font for the Kindle app, for the Kindle device. And it's a proprietary Amazon font made by a font-making company. I don't remember which one off the cuff. But I contacted them and asked them, hey, I see that you guys made this font. Where do we submit applications to have the font extended? What do we do if we'd like you guys to add characters to that? And they were like, well, yeah, we made that font. We sold it to Amazon. They have all of the rights to it. So if you want it changed, you're going to have to contact them. They were polite about it, and the response I got was more in depth than I was expecting. Honestly, I was kind of expecting to just be ignored because, some idiot on the internet is sending a random email asking about changing two characters in a 3,000 character font, something like that. But yeah, they pointed me back at Amazon and, gave me a little bit of an interesting, backdoor look at how font contracts work and stuff. Nothing really fancy, just the bare bones of, we did this contract, now it's their property and we can't actually touch it anymore because it's outside of our control. So I contact Amazon, which took some digging to figure out where I probably should be contacting, who I should be contacting in Amazon. And I sent a message, and I was correct in the area that I was contacting. But the response I got was basically, hey, we'll kick it up the chain. Thank you for your input. We will take it under advisement, sort of thing. Which is corporate lingo for go pound sand. So I don't expect to see a change anytime soon. If I go back to continue Lie or the Eternal series on Vela, I will be, because that book is finished. But if I start writing another one on Vela in that series, I'm either going to have to try and make a workaround or hope that I get enough traction that I can actually contact them and be like, hey, it'd be real great if your font would do the thing that I need it to do. But because I don't have the ability to change the font, I do have the ability to change my writing to make it more accessible. I don't like the idea of using different characters than what I've already used within that writing. So instead, I'm going to be writing other things because that's what I have control over, is what I'm going to use the platform for. Yeah. It should be about the same for you in, how you write, what you write, things like that. There are portions of it that you have control over, and there are other things that you have absolutely no control over whatsoever. you have control over when you plan to write, for how long, where you're going to do it, that kind of stuff. But you have no control over, the dog taking a shit in the front hallway right before you're about to start and needing to clean up before you can do anything else. You just clean up, and try and pick up the pieces afterwards. But people nowadays are too worried about that a lot of the time. We see, because we have so many options, we wind up with choice paralysis. When you have, two choices, the one that's better but more expensive versus the one that's worse but cheaper, it's easy to make the decision based on, whatever factors you have at hand. When you have 30 things, each of varying price and quality, suddenly it becomes more complicated. When you have 300, that's a hell of a lot harder. And a lot of people these days think they have so many choices that they can't even know how many choices they have, how many options they have available to choose from. And there's a feeling of loss of control in that. And people are freezing up, panicking, and flaking because of that. You have, all sorts of options. And because you have so many options, you feel like you've lost control. This is part of why there are, poetry structures and things of that nature, If you know that you have to be writing in couplets, then you have this structure where you have to do it this way over and over and over and over again. That structure doesn't take away options. It solidifies the options that you are going to be using and then give you a way to make a functional choice, as opposed to trying to figure out how many choices you can actually make. You have a degree of control because of that structure. If you could go anywhere in any direction, then you might get stuck going nowhere because you can't decide. But if you step onto a road and it goes in two directions, well, you've got one choice to make, and then it's just go. Sometimes less is more, and you need to find ways to make it so that the choices you allow yourself are structured enough that you can find control, take control, and hold on to it. That's true in life as it is in writing. I hope this helps someone, because it sucks when you feel like you don't have control. Yeah, anyway, Bob out.